Hello. Many thanks for watching this short clip, and by implication, many thanks for having agreed to take part in this research project. I hope you find your participation interesting, enjoyable, and informative. I would like to use this opportunity to run by you the nature of the project, some background to the pluralistic approach to counselling and psychotherapy, and what your role in the project will entail. The underlying rationale of this project is that the history of coaching shows that the profession has a record of looking to psychotherapy, counselling, and psychological models as the foundation for coaching approaches. With this in mind, the research question that I want to address is this: how do coaches perceive the potential value of the pluralistic approach to counselling and psychotherapy as a framework for coaching? My expectation is that you have not come across the pluralistic approach before, so please do not worry if this is the case. In fact, that could possibly be an advantage. The materials that I have provided you with will enable you to get a relatively detailed overview of the approach, and then will hopefully assist you in moving towards reflecting on how it might potentially be adapted for coaching, or what the problems might be in attempting to do so. If you have come across the approach before, this is no problem at all, but can I invite you to try and engage with the approach with fresh eyes, temporarily bracketing off your previous knowledge and thoughts, to get as close as possible to imagining that this is your first encounter with the approach. I would like your introduction to the approach to be a simple, stepped process. Having expressed an interest in participating in the project, you have hopefully read the introduction information sheet that I have provided you with prior to watching this clip. I've also provided you with a free copy of the book, The Pluralistic Approach to Counselling and Psychotherapy. After watching this clip, I would like you to read the summary of the approach I've provided you with, and then please use the book in whatever way that you find helpful. But be assured that I have no expectations of you in this respect, and I certainly do not expect you to have read the entire book before we meet up for a short interview. It might be helpful to scan the contents of the book, and then as you read about the approach or reflect on different elements of it, that you might want to look at relevant sections or paragraphs in order to bring clarity or greater depth of understanding. If you wish to go to other sources to support your understanding, such as articles or commentaries, that's fine. However, I would request that you do your best not to engage in much discussion of the approach with peers and colleagues prior to the interview, simply to ensure that we capture your own individual process in forming opinions, thoughts, and attitudes around it. In order to do this, it might be helpful for you to briefly note down your impressions and responses as you become familiar with the approach. It might be that as you engage with it, that your thoughts and responses alter, develop, or modify. Keeping such notes will help you to track this process, which in turn could helpfully feed into our dialogue within the interview. However, these will only be for your own use, and again, I have no expectation of you in this regard. As you do this process of familiarisation, I'm not expecting you to come to any final conclusions, although you might. It could be that you experience both positive and negative thoughts, ideas, and feelings as you encounter the framework. I am more interested in capturing the full range of your experience rather than coming to any final conclusions. It's important that you contact me with any questions regarding the pluralistic approach prior to the interview, so that I can answer in a considered and relatively objective fashion. In this way, we can avoid getting into an informal conversation about the approach in the interview itself in a way that could cause any researcher bias on my part, impacting negatively on the interview. Please feel free to contact me about any other relevant issues prior to the interview. I would like to use the remaining moments of this clip to briefly tell you a little bit about the approach. The written summary will give you a slightly more in-depth understanding, and the book will provide an authoritative resource that you can go to for further clarification. The pluralistic approach, which has been devised by Mick Cooper and John MacLeod, can be thought of as containing two elements. One is the philosophical foundation of the approach, and the other is its structure. Focusing first on the philosophical foundation, it is apparent that the history of counselling and psychotherapy can be characterised as a kind of turf war existing between the different approaches to therapy. A kind of unhelpful, my approach is better than your approach rivalry has occurred between them. There are two essential reasons for this. The first is historical, because new therapeutic approaches have often been created as reactions against existing schools of therapy. The second reason is that most of the approaches are based on psychological or philosophical theories which are seemingly at odds with each other. It has been argued that coaching currently has the potential to fall into the same trap, with different approaches to coaching arguing their case in relation to one another. The creators of the pluralistic approach see such rivalry as self-defeating and being to the detriment of the client. A part of the radical nature of the pluralistic approach is that it enables the practitioner to draw from different approaches that may initially be seen as incompatible or at odds with one another. They draw on a philosophy of pluralism that argues reality cannot be reduced to single principles and believes in a messy universe in which multiple versions of reality can be tolerated simultaneously. They relate this to postmodernism, which argues against single definitive truths, and also humanistic existential thinking, which privileges the expertise and wisdom of the client over that of the counsellor or the facilitator. Put simply, they argue that it is not feasible for any one counselling, psychotherapy or coaching approach to have all the answers all the time, and therefore disputes amongst the different approaches are futile and self-defeating. A pluralistic practitioner will ask the client what they want to work on and, as importantly, how they want to work on it, and will try to be proficient in a number of approaches. They see the collaborative relationship between practitioner and client as being the foundation of the work, with the client's preference for ways of working taking precedence over the counsellor or coach's preferred ways of working. They refer to the work being client-directed rather than client-centred. They draw on the analogy of the interior design consultant who brings their expertise to the table, but at the end will try and deliver a service or product tailored to the specific wishes of the particular client. There is reference to a menu of approaches or ways of working that are offered to the client. They stress that not every practitioner can be proficient in every approach, but suggest that they should aspire to be able to work in a small number of approaches that have distinctive characteristics. The pluralistic framework itself is structured into three sections: goals, tasks, and methods. As a practicing coach, I imagine that you are saying to yourself at this point, well, I know all about goals. However, in some areas of therapy, goals have on occasion had a bit of a bad press. Cooper and MacLeod see goals as the means of aligning ourselves with the client's value systems and aspirations. In the book and in the summary, several aspects of goals are named and explored. They are clear that the pluralistic approach is flexible around at which point in the process goals are formed. They encourage us to explore both how goals are articulated and how the expression or achievement of one goal can lead on to the creation or recognition of others. Tasks are the particular route that the coachees or clients take to achieve their goals. So, for example, if my goal is I want to live a more creative life, the tasks might include such things as time management in order to allow for more life-enhancing activities, working on the psychological blocks that have stopped me achieving this in the past, finding information about local art classes, working on my confidence and self-belief that I can achieve this, etc. Being able to draw on the different approaches to coaching and therapy means that there are far more possibilities in terms of working on tasks. So rather than working in a one-size-fits-all way that comes out of the coach's preferred way of working, the pluralistic practitioner is able to consider competing and alternative models which they can offer to the client. If goals are the destination and tasks are the planned routes for travelling, then methods are the specifics of the actual journey. The actual roads you travel, the left turn and the right turn that you take. Each approach to coaching will have different methods associated with it. For example, cognitive approaches will emphasise rational challenge. Solution-focused methods will focus on preferred scenarios, while person-centred coaches will emphasise affirmation of the coach's individual perception. In the pluralistic approach, there would be an emphasis on generating a number of possible methods for working that the coachee can then consider and choose from. As well as techniques and strategies from the various approaches, Cooper and MacLeod suggest considering other practices used in the wider culture and individual strategies that the coachee might devise. Practices in the wider culture could include therapeutic things such as swimming or walking. Practices that are unique to the individual could include idiosyncratic things that belong to them, that they have devised and that they find useful. There is more on this in the written summary that I have prepared for you. We will draw this stage of your familiarisation with the pluralistic framework to a close now. I hope it has aroused your interest to move on to the next stage, which is reading the short summary of the framework. Once again, many thanks for taking part in this project, and please do feel free to contact me in the meantime if there are any questions I can answer for you. My email and mobile number are included in the introductory letter. Thank you.